In the heart of the kingdom of Nadi, Queen Kalisha, renowned for her unmatched beauty, carries the weight of invisible scars that haunt her past. As whispers of betrayal and darkness surround her reign, an enigmatic traveler warns of a looming threat from a rival village seeking revenge for her father's sins. Faced with the possibility of losing everything she has built, Kalisha must confront her deepest fears and make an impossible choice. Will she fight to protect her kingdom or seek a path of understanding and healing? As the tension escalates, she stands at the crossroads of courage and vulnerability, ready to uncover the truth that could change the fate of Nadi forever. With her heart racing, Kalisha prepares to face the darkness, but will her journey lead to redemption or destruction? Kalisha, the queen of Nadi, was admired by all who saw her. Her skin glowed like the sunrise, her eyes sparkled like stars, and her hair flowed like the river that ran through the village. But despite her beauty, Kalisha carried a heavy secret. Every time she looked into a mirror, she saw her face covered in deep, ugly scars. Scars no one else could see but her. At night, her sleep was filled with strange dreams. She wandered through dark forests, chased by shadows of her past, yet she could never remember what had happened. One day, a traveler arrived in Nadi. His name was Shuja, and he was unlike anyone Kalisha had ever seen. His clothes were worn from long journeys, and his eyes held a mysterious light. The people of Nadi whispered about him, calling him a healer, a magician, even a savior. When Shuja requested to meet the queen, Kalisha agreed. He entered the palace, bowing low before her. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice soft yet powerful, "I have heard of your beauty, but I also know your secret." Kalisha's heart pounded. How could he know? No one else had ever seen her scars. Shuja continued, "I can help you remember your past and erase those scars, if you're willing to pay the price." Kalisha was torn. She wanted to be free of the scars, free from the haunting dreams that disturbed her nights. But something about Shuja's offer unsettled her. "What is the price?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Shuja smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "The price is not gold, Your Majesty. The price is the truth. Once you remember, you can never forget. And once the scars are gone, the truth will remain with you forever." Kalisha's hands trembled as she stared at the floor. Could she face the truth? Could she live without the scars if it meant uncovering something so painful she had buried it deep in her mind? She did not know the answer, but the offer hung in the air like a shadow over her heart. Days passed, and Kalisha could not shake Shuja's words from her thoughts. The scars seemed to burn more fiercely now, as if they were begging her to seek the truth. She called for Shuja again, hoping he would reveal more. "Why do I not remember?" she asked when they met once more in her grand hall. Shuja tilted his head, studying her as if deciding how much to tell her. "The mind can hide painful memories to protect itself," he said. "But the scars on your face are not just on the outside. They are the result of what you've forgotten. To heal them, you must face what you've hidden from yourself." Kalisha shuddered, her fear growing stronger. But alongside the fear, a flame of curiosity ignited within her. She wanted to know. Kalisha spent sleepless nights turning over Shuja's words. The mystery of her scars, invisible to everyone else, weighed heavy on her. Each night, as she lay in bed, her dreams became more vivid. Shadowy figures reached out to her, dark forests closed in, and whispers filled her ears. She would wake in a sweat, clutching her chest as if her heart might burst. Yet the dreams never gave her any answers, only more questions. What had she forgotten? And was she truly ready to remember? In the days that followed, Kalisha wandered through the village of Nadi. The people smiled at her, praising her beauty, but they had no idea of the burden she carried. The children ran through the fields, laughing and carefree, and she found herself envious of their innocence. For as long as she could remember, she had ruled the kingdom with grace and fairness. But now, a deep, unsettling feeling began to take root inside her. Was she truly the queen they believed her to be? Or was she living a lie? Unable to bear the weight of her thoughts any longer, Kalisha called for Shuja once again. This time, she was ready. "I will face the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the fear swirling inside her. Shuja nodded, his expression unreadable. "Very well, Your Majesty. But once we begin, there is no turning back. The scars will fade only when the truth is fully revealed." Kalisha nodded, swallowing hard. She had made her choice. The time for fear had passed. That night, under the cover of darkness, Shuja led Kalisha to the edge of the village, where an ancient tree stood. Its twisted branches reached toward the sky like the fingers of a giant. "This is where it began," Shuja said, his voice low. Kalisha's breath caught in her throat. The tree looked familiar, though she couldn't remember why. "What do I need to do?" she asked. Shuja placed a hand on the tree's bark. "Touch the tree, Your Majesty. And as you do, let your mind wander. The truth is buried deep within you, but this tree will guide you back." Kalisha hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward, pressing her hand against the rough bark. The moment she touched it, a jolt of energy surged through her body. Her eyes closed involuntarily, and she was pulled into a memory, one she hadn't known existed. She was standing in the same spot, but the tree was different. Younger. There was no village, no palace. Just her and a man she did not recognize. His face was stern, his eyes cold. He held a knife. "This is your destiny," he said, his voice echoing in her mind. "You will be queen, but you must bear the scars of our betrayal." Kalisha's eyes snapped open, her heart racing. She stumbled back, gasping for air. "Who was that man?" she whispered, trembling. Shuja watched her carefully. "He was your father," Shuja said softly. "He made a deal with dark forces to make you queen, but the price was your beauty. The scars are a reminder of that deal, hidden from everyone but you." Kalisha's stomach turned. Her father. The man she had loved and trusted. How could he have done such a thing? But the memories kept coming, flooding her mind with painful truths. She saw herself as a young girl, standing beside her father as he struck a deal with a shadowy figure. In exchange for power, he had sacrificed her future. The scars were the price of that deal, a mark of his betrayal. "I didn't know," Kalisha whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know." Shuja placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Now you do. The scars are not your burden to bear. They were never yours." Kalisha sobbed, the weight of the truth crashing down on her. But as the tears fell, something miraculous happened. The scars on her face, scars only she could see, began to fade. Slowly at first, then all at once, until her skin was smooth once more. She touched her face, hardly believing it. The pain was still there, the memories fresh and raw, but the scars were gone. Shuja smiled gently. "The truth has set you free, Your Majesty. But now, you must decide what to do with it." Kalisha stood tall, wiping her tears. The truth had been revealed, and with it came a new strength. She was no longer the queen her father had made her to be. She was her own queen now, and her destiny was hers to shape. Returning to the palace, Kalisha addressed her people. "I have carried a burden for many years, one that was not mine to bear. But today, I stand before you, free of that burden. From this day forward, I will lead not with the shadow of my past, but with the light of truth." The people of Nadi cheered, their queen more beautiful and powerful than ever before, not because of her appearance, but because of the strength she had found within. As for Shuja, he vanished as mysteriously as he had arrived, leaving Kalisha to rule her kingdom with wisdom and grace. She never saw him again, but she would never forget the lesson he had taught her, that the truth, no matter how painful, was the only path to true freedom. Kalisha's speech to the people of Nadi marked a new chapter for the kingdom. For so long, she had hidden behind her beauty, behind the fear of her scars. But now, she stood before her people, not as a queen shaped by dark deals and betrayals, but as a leader who had found her true self. The crowd's cheers echoed in the streets, and Kalisha felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from her soul. She was no longer just a queen admired for her beauty, she was now respected for her strength and courage. In the days that followed, Kalisha's rule changed. She made decisions with a newfound confidence, one that came from knowing the truth about her past. No longer burdened by the invisible scars, she focused on bringing peace and prosperity to Nadi. She walked among her people more often, listening to their stories, sharing in their joys and sorrows. The villagers could feel the difference in her. There was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there before, a warmth that drew people to her. Kalisha was no longer distant, but present, connected to her kingdom in a way she had never been before. But even as Kalisha embraced her new role, the memory of her father's betrayal lingered. She could not forget the man who had shaped her destiny in such a cruel way. She visited the ancient tree often, standing in silence as the wind whispered through its branches. The memory of that night, of the deal her father had made, was still painful. But Kalisha knew she had to make peace with it. Shuja had taught her that the scars were not hers to bear, but she also knew that forgiveness was a part of healing. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills of Nadi, Kalisha stood before the tree once more. This time, she was not searching for answers, but for closure. She spoke aloud, her voice soft but steady. "Father, I forgive you," she said, her heart aching as the words left her lips. "You made a terrible mistake, but I will not let it define me any longer." As the last light of day faded, Kalisha felt a sense of peace wash over her. The scars were gone, and with them, the pain of the past. That night, Kalisha dreamed again, but this time the dream was different. She walked through the same forest, but there were no shadows, no whispers. Instead, she was surrounded by light, and in the distance, she could hear the laughter of her people. The forest opened up to a field of flowers, and there, standing in the middle, was Shuja. He smiled at her, his eyes warm and kind. "You've done well, Your Majesty," he said. "The truth was hard, but you faced it with courage." Kalisha smiled back, her heart full. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." Shuja nodded and began to fade into the light. "Remember, Kalisha, the scars may be gone, but the lessons will stay with you forever." And with that, he disappeared, leaving Kalisha standing in the field, her heart light and her soul free. When Kalisha awoke the next morning, she felt different, stronger, wiser, and more at peace than she had ever been. She rose from her bed, dressed in her royal robes, and looked out over her kingdom. Nadi was her home, and she was ready to rule it with all the wisdom and strength she had gained. As she stepped out onto the balcony, the people below greeted her with cheers. But this time, Kalisha knew they were not just cheering for her beauty. They were cheering for a queen who had faced her fears, uncovered the truth, and emerged stronger on the other side. She smiled, knowing that the future of Nadi was bright, and she was ready to lead her people into it. Kalisha's journey as Queen of Nadi didn't end with her newfound peace. In the days that followed her revelation, she dedicated herself to creating a legacy that would transform her kingdom. She wanted Nadi to be a place of wisdom, fairness, and compassion, a place where the truth would always be honored, no matter how painful. The villagers noticed the change in their queen. She was more open, more engaged with the people, and even more radiant than before. Her beauty now came from the inner strength and courage she had gained. But Kalisha knew that the scars, though gone, had left an invisible mark on her soul, a reminder of the power of truth and the importance of facing one's past. One day, as Kalisha strolled through the market square, she encountered an elderly woman sitting under the shade of a baobab tree. The woman looked at her with wise, knowing eyes. "You've learned much, my queen," the woman said softly. Kalisha smiled and sat beside her. "I have, but there is always more to learn," she replied. The old woman nodded. "Indeed. The journey never ends, not even for a queen." She paused and looked into Kalisha's eyes. "But remember, strength is not just about facing the past. It's about what you do with the truth you've uncovered. How will you shape the future of Nadi?" Kalisha thought about the woman's words. She realized that while she had faced her scars and learned the truth about her father's betrayal, her story was not yet complete. She had a responsibility to lead Nadi into a future built on trust, honesty, and unity. In the weeks that followed, Kalisha initiated changes in her kingdom. She gathered her advisors and began implementing new laws that emphasized justice and fairness. She opened her palace doors to the people, encouraging them to voice their concerns and share their stories. She built schools, ensuring that every child, no matter their background, would have access to education. Kalisha knew that knowledge was the key to a brighter future, and she wanted the children of Nadi to grow up with the wisdom and courage to face their own truths. Word of Kalisha's leadership spread beyond the borders of Nadi. Visitors from neighboring villages came to learn from her, seeking guidance on how to rule with both strength and compassion. Kalisha welcomed them, sharing the lessons she had learned through her journey. Her story became a symbol of resilience, and people from all walks of life were inspired by her transformation. As time passed, the memory of Shuja and the scars faded, but Kalisha never forgot the lessons they had taught her. She often returned to the ancient tree, not to search for answers, but to reflect on how far she had come. The tree, once a place of fear and darkness, now represented growth and renewal for Kalisha. Years later, Kalisha stood before her people once again, this time addressing them as a queen who had not only survived but thrived. "Our past may shape us," she said, her voice strong and steady, "but it does not define us. We have the power to write our own future, and together, we will make Nadi a kingdom where truth and justice reign." The crowd erupted in cheers, and Kalisha smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had faced her past, healed her scars, and emerged as the queen she was always meant to be. Kalisha, the scarred queen, had journeyed through darkness and emerged into light. With each passing day, she discovered new depths of courage and resilience within herself. Her connection to her people grew stronger as she learned to lead not just with her beauty but with her heart. The village of Nadi thrived under her rule, becoming a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who heard her story. One evening, during a vibrant festival celebrating the harvest, Kalisha walked among her people, feeling their joy wash over her like a warm breeze. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the sweet aroma of roasted yams and spiced meat. The villagers adorned in colorful attire danced in circles, their faces beaming with happiness. Kalisha felt a surge of gratitude as she watched them celebrate life. However, as the festivities continued, an unexpected visitor arrived, a stranger draped in a dark cloak, his face hidden in the shadows. Kalisha's heart raced. She sensed an aura of mystery and tension surrounding him. The joyful atmosphere shifted as the villagers turned to see the stranger approaching. Kalisha stepped forward, her gaze steady. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice unwavering. The stranger pulled back his hood, revealing sharp features and piercing eyes. "I am Kofi, a traveler seeking truth," he replied, his voice low and haunting. "I have heard tales of your beauty and strength, but there are whispers of a darkness that still lingers in your kingdom." Kalisha felt a chill run down her spine. She had fought hard to overcome her past, and the idea that darkness could return was unsettling. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear rising within her. Kofi stepped closer, the crowd parting for him. "Your father's betrayal is known to many, including those who seek revenge. There are those who believe your rise to power was built on his sins, and they will stop at nothing to take what they believe is rightfully theirs." Kalisha's heart sank. She had hoped that her father's mistakes would not haunt her reign. "What must I do?" she asked, determination flooding her voice. "You must confront this darkness head-on," Kofi replied. "You cannot lead in fear. Gather your trusted advisors and prepare for what is to come. The shadows may be creeping closer, but you hold the light within you." As the festival continued around her, Kalisha felt a weight settle on her shoulders. She couldn't let her people suffer because of her father's past. That night, she gathered her closest advisors in the palace, including Shujo, who had become not just her protector but her friend. "Listen closely," Kalisha began, her voice strong. "A traveler has warned me of a darkness approaching Nadi. We cannot afford to be caught off guard." Her advisors exchanged worried glances, but she held their gaze firmly. "We will prepare, but we will not hide." In the days that followed, Kalisha and her advisors worked tirelessly to fortify the kingdom. They reinforced the village's defenses and trained the villagers in self-defense. Kalisha spent time teaching them the importance of courage and unity. "Together, we are stronger than any darkness," she reminded them. As the sun began to set on the eve of a full moon, Kalisha sensed that the moment of confrontation was near. A tension hung in the air, and the villagers felt it too. They looked to their queen for guidance, and she stood tall, her heart pounding but her resolve unwavering. That night, as the moon shone brightly, Kofi returned to Nadi, his eyes filled with urgency. "They are coming," he warned, his voice low. "Prepare yourselves." Kalisha rallied her people, her voice rising above the fear. "We are not afraid. We have faced darkness before, and we will do so again. Trust in yourselves and in each other." Suddenly, the night erupted with the sound of horns and drums, announcing the arrival of a group of warriors from a rival village. Their leader, a tall figure with a fierce expression, stepped forward. "Kalisha, daughter of the betrayer, we have come to reclaim what is ours." Kalisha stepped forward, heart racing, but determination flooding her veins. "You have no claim here. My father's sins are not mine to bear. I have built a kingdom of truth and strength, and I will protect it." The warrior sneered, "Your beauty may have won the hearts of your people, but it cannot shield you from the past." As tensions rose, Kalisha felt a surge of energy. She raised her hand, calling for silence. "You may seek revenge, but I will not allow the darkness of our ancestors to control our fates. Let us instead choose a different path, a path of understanding." The rival warrior paused, confusion crossing his face. "You would rather speak than fight?" "Yes," Kalisha replied, her voice firm. "Let us find a way to heal, rather than hurt. Together, we can build a stronger future, one that honors our past but does not let it define us." There was a long silence as her words hung in the air. The warrior exchanged glances with his followers, and Kalisha held her breath, hoping they would see the truth in her plea. Finally, he spoke. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your words. We will listen, but know that trust takes time." Kalisha nodded, relief washing over her. "Then let us take that time together. We can learn from one another, for our future is intertwined." In the weeks that followed, Kalisha met with the rival village, sharing stories of their histories and traditions. She realized that while the past had shaped them, it didn't have to dictate their futures. Together, they forged a new alliance, one built on understanding and compassion. The darkness that once threatened Nadi began to fade, replaced by the promise of unity and hope. Kalisha's heart swelled with pride as she watched her people grow closer, not only to each other but to those they once saw as enemies. She learned that true leadership wasn't just about ruling, it was about healing wounds and fostering connections. Years later, as Kalisha stood in the same spot where she had once feared for her kingdom, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The scars of the past had long since faded, replaced by the vibrant tapestry of a united Nadi. Her journey had transformed her from a scarred queen into a beloved leader, one who had faced her fears and chosen a path of light. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the story of Kalisha, the scarred queen. This tale teaches us that the past may shape us, but it does not have to define us. It reminds us that true strength lies in facing our fears and choosing love and understanding over darkness. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like the video and leave a comment to share your thoughts and what lessons you learned from Kalisha's journey. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Also, please share this story with your friends and family, so they too can learn from its message. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales and adventures like this one. Thank you again for watching, and stay tuned for our next exciting video. Remember to keep your heart open, and watch out for what comes next. Goodbye for now.